Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're driving into something that is literally a game changer for how we think about employment for people with disabilities. We're looking at this amazing concept called resource ownership. And listen, this isn't about cramming people into pre-existing one-size-fits-all boxes. And we are absolutely not focusing on the bottom line here. Instead, it's about looking at human potential through a totally fresh lens. It's an approach that truly honors human dignity, giving folks the power to build sustainable, meaningful careers completely on their own terms. I am so pumped to share this with you today because the real-world stories we're going to explore, they are just incredible. Okay, let's dive into this. What resources do we need to make this happen? That is the magic question. It's such a simple shift in phrasing, right? But honestly, it's a massive shift in mindset. For decades, the old-school approach to vocational support kind of fixated on limitations. It asked, what can this person do? Which, let's be real, is usually just a polite way of asking, what are their deficits? But resource ownership, it flips the script completely. It challenges us to look at the individual first and ask, what physical resources, tools, or environments do we actually need to assemble to make a career a reality? It takes all that burden of proof right off the job seeker's shoulders and places it firmly on the strategy of support. So what exactly is it? Resource ownership is essentially a job development philosophy that puts the person front and center. Not the program, not what's easiest for a service provider, the person. The whole shebang is built around discovering what someone truly cares about, what they're actually good at, and then, here's the key, strategically assembling the specific physical tools and environments they need to completely bypass any barriers. It's their passions, their capabilities that dictate the path. Now, the contrast here is night and day. You've got traditional placement on one side. That's the old way of doing things, right? Just trying to squeeze a beautifully unique human being into this rigid, pre-existing corporate mold. And spoiler alert, it rarely works long-term. But resource ownership, this is customized employment in the absolute truest sense of the word. We aren't just finding a job, we're literally building a custom job around a person's unique strengths and passions. There's this fantastic quote from the source material that I absolutely love. It says, think of it like building a bridge. Picture it. On one side of the river, you have the individual. They've got all these incredible interests, strengths, and yes, personal challenges. On the exact opposite side is a real job and a real business. Resource ownership is simply the act of figuring out exactly what physical tools act as those vital planks and supports to span that gap. Over these next several segments, we're going to look at 10 real people, and we'll get to see exactly what planks were used to build their bridges. First up, let's meet Samuel. Now, Samuel was recovering from a really severe car accident and had become a wheelchair user. Because the recovery took so long, he lost his job, and understandably, he lost a lot of his confidence too. The traditional approach probably would have asked, well, can someone in a wheelchair even work in a garage? But using resource ownership, they asked a better question. What does Samuel know? And man, he knew cars inside and out. So what was the physical resource, his plank, needed to build that bridge? It was a sophisticated computerized diagnostic engine analyzer. By getting Samuel the specific tool, he could operate it right from his wheelchair. He solved a local mechanic shop's crippling downtime problems, and at the same time, stepped right back into his identity as an expert mechanic. Talk about a win-win. Next, we have Roberta. Roberta has cerebral palsy. Now, when she was looking for work, she kept getting pushed toward work from home or desk jobs, simply because she couldn't drive. People just assumed her options were limited. But Roberta, she vehemently rejected that idea. She wanted to be out in the community. She wanted total independence. So her bridge wasn't just a different desk. No, it was an adaptive four-wheel drive vehicle. That was her vital resource. Once she had that vehicle, that transportation barrier was completely gone. She's now been with the same company for over 7 years, taking annual vacations entirely on her own terms. And this brilliantly illustrates what happens when we actually listen to someone's environmental needs. Take Russell. Russell has schizophrenia, and in his first job placement at a really busy car dealership, the chaotic showroom triggered auditory hallucinations that made the job completely impossible for him. The environment was failing him. But when someone finally asked what he actually wanted to do, he said, I want to clean things. I want to work outside when I can. So, what was the solution? They secured a portable steam cleaner and a used truck. Those physical tools empowered him to launch an independent self-employment business, cleaning for local gas stations and restaurants. Now he works on his own terms, in an environment he completely controls. Then there's Mary. Mary has a developmental disability and limited literacy skills, but she absolutely loves computers, and, this is crucial, she loves chocolate.
So instead of fixating on the literacy barrier, they zeroed in on her passions. They carved out a brand new role for her at a small candy company. The specific resource they assembled for Mary? A dedicated computer workstation fully equipped with specialized software and pre-programmed macros. That setup allowed her to completely bypass her literacy barriers and execute complex sequences. Over time, she used that very tool to expand her role into printing labels, doing quality control, and even jumping into retail sales.
Let's look at James. He's a guy in his mid-50s with a developmental disability and just this intense, deep passion for geography and maps. A job developer actually noticed this and asked a really smart question. Where do businesses need maps laminated? Well, they found a local sign shop that was actually bleeding money because they were outsourcing all their laminating work. So the bridge built for James was a commercial laminator. By matching his massive passion with this specific piece of equipment, James solved a major headache for the shop, saved them from outsourcing, and secured a role where everybody views him as the absolute expert. Errol's story is just incredible. Errol has a developmental disability and had been labeled as occasionally violent. Because of that label, he kept refusing these forced job placements. And honestly, why wouldn't he? He had zero agency. None of these were his choice. But Errol knew what he wanted. He wanted to detail cars. When they finally stopped fighting his preferences and actually listened, everything changed. They got him a position at a new car detailing operation and trained him on a commercial carpet steamer. Just giving him the power of choice, paired with the right tool, completely dissolved those labeled behavioral barriers. He does amazing work and literally hasn't looked back since. So the crucial point is that sometimes the required resource isn't some super complex piece of technology. Sometimes it's literally just basic ergonomics. Take John, for example. He's a guy in his mid-20s with a psychiatric disability. He absolutely loved working at this dog grooming school, but severe fatigue and physical discomfort were pushing him right out of the job. The solution? Remarkably simple. 2 adjustable height grooming tables. That was the resource. It let him adjust his workspace throughout the day, which eliminated his fatigue, drastically boosted his productivity, and gave him the confidence to eventually start his own side business. Sometimes the resources are all about modifying an entire environment to match a person's personality. Jessie is a young woman with psychiatric and developmental disabilities, and her absolute superpower is her warmth, her enthusiasm, and her love for entertaining people. She was matched with a bookstore, but to let her truly shine, they didn't just slap a name tag on her. No, they brought in specific environmental tools: comfortable reading chairs, beautiful signage, and a cappuccino maker. These resources allowed Jessie to curate this entirely unique, incredibly welcoming customer experience that actually drove up the bookstore's sales. She didn't have to fit into the store was customized around her amazing vibe. And consider Ted, a man with a lifelong, genuine passion for automobiles and a developmental disability. He got matched with a local car dealership that was just drowning in chaotic paperwork and messy vehicle identification number tracking. It was a mess. The resources assembled to build Ted's bridge: a mobile tool cart, some dedicated computer equipment, and a simple barcode scanner. By empowering Ted with those exact physical tools, he took complete ownership of the inventory tracking and brought total order to the chaos. His passion met a very real business need, all through the right equipment. For our 10th story, let's look at Georgia. She is a single mom with muscular dystrophy and a psychiatric disability. She was stuck in this part-time clerical role, barely getting any hours. But her goal? She wanted full-time security and benefits. The resource that completely changed her life was an advanced, high-speed, full-featured copier. By securing this really complex piece of machinery for her to operate, suddenly she could collate, process things way faster, and handle these massive copying tasks. It vastly increased her value to her employer. Because of that single physical tool, she turned a part-time gig into a 15-year career, complete with full-time hours, retirement benefits, and deep financial security. Let's move to and see how this builds. Section 1, the bridge to success, empowering through customization. We've just walked through 10 incredibly diverse human stories, right? But as you can see, they all share these really powerful unifying themes of human agency. In every single story, the person came first. Samuel, Roberta, Errol, they all had agency. Their jobs were built around what they knew and what they needed, not what was just convenient for some program. Second, we saw how strategically assembling specific physical tools, whether it's an engine analyzer, a cappuccino maker, or an adjustable table, acts as the ultimate equalizer. Third, it absolutely has to be truly custom. There is no one-size-fits-all template here. You can't just hand a map laminator to someone who actually needs a steam cleaner.
And finally, when you respect human dignity and design a job specifically for a person's unique strengths, you build lasting sustainability. We aren't talking about temporary Band-Aid placements here. We are talking about real, decades-long careers. Which brings us to the end of our explainer today. The 10 individuals we just talked about, they are not exceptions. They are ordinary people who achieved extraordinary things simply because someone believed that assembling the right physical resources was actually worth the effort. So I want to leave you with this final thought. How many more people are out there right now, full of passion and potential, just waiting for someone to look past their barriers and simply ask, what resources do we need to make this work?